Welcome to the Healthcare Revolution podcast, where we empower you to take control of your health, create a community of trust in healthcare, and achieve lasting wellness. I am your host, Brad Powell, doctor of physical therapy and owner of an award-winning clinic here in the Salt Lake Valley. Each episode, we dive into all things injury prevention, overall health, and bring you expert insights from leaders across various healthcare fields. Please note, while we strive to provide you with the best knowledge and advice, the opinions shared on this podcast represents the experts and are not to replace professional medical advice. So let's revolutionize healthcare and wellness together. Today, I have with me Emily Hilton. She is an incredible woman and mother, and she has just done so much. Our podcast today is all about reclaiming your body after having kids, and she is an expert at this because she has had 4 children under the age of 3.
Oh man, I don't know if that makes me an expert or just like a speed demon.
You just fed up life. Yeah. Yes, and your most recent were twins, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So tell me about that. Just give me some insight. What is it like to be a mom of 4 kids under 3 years old?
Yeah, so we are the party house. We love it. It's so crazy. It's so fun. I'd never in a million years expected my life to look like this at the age of 28, but here I am. And life is wild. So I have a 3-year-old, an 18-month-old, and then twin 3-month-olds. And from the second you wake up, from the second you go to sleep and then wake up again 8 more times in the night, it's crazy.
How do you even keep up with life? You know what I mean?
Help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about the help that you have.
So I have a nanny that comes 3 times a week.
Okay.
And that is like truly the only way that I am afloat.
Yeah.
It's super nice.
You think about exercise. You think about going to the grocery store. I cannot imagine taking 4 kids under 3 to the grocery store.
It's fun. You get so many comments, I'll tell you that.
It'd be an adventure, that's for sure.
You got 2 carts and lots of staring people. Like, you think those are all her kids? They're thinking it.
Hopefully not judgment. Just
it's okay. Let them think whatever they want.
So walk me through a day in the life of being in the Hilton home. Just give me some generals. What is that like to have 4 kids under 3? So
luckily I have a really good partner. My husband is super involved. He's a great dad. Yeah. And so he helps a lot. So I normally feed the twins 5 a.m., 5:30, and then I go to the gym. And he'll get up with the other kids and get them breakfast. And then I get home. We do some morning family fun time and breakfast, just get dressed.
Hype up, dancing.
Oh yeah, always a dance party for sure in the morning. And then he heads off to work, and I actually work 2 times a week. 2-3 times a week too.
Oh, you have a job on the side as well.
I own a business. I have a tea company.
That is so awesome. I want to hear more about it. Okay, keep going down your day.
We work, and then we play, we read lots of books, we do the whole mom thing. I manage the house, and during the day, just a lot of playing right now, and a lot of feeding babies. There's a lot of that.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Just staying up to speed on you eating is hard enough.
That
right?
too. I don't know. I'm not the best. I often forget, and that's not good. But, it just is life.
Tell me about the hardest part about being, I just want to get real and raw here. What is the hardest part about being a mom with such young kids?
I think it's really hard to just there's so many things, right? You have to make all the food. You have to make sure the house is clean. You have to make sure your kids are alive. But then there's this social pressure. I don't know where this pressure comes from of but you shouldn't let them watch too much TV. You want to give them stimulating activities that they can do to learn and grow. But also there's just so much. And so I think the hardest part for me is okay, I only have so much energy. I only have so many hours in the day, and there's only one of me. And so where do I put my priorities, right? Is my priority to get the house clean and make sure my to-do list is done? Or is my priority to give my kids love and attention? And I think that for me is really hard. It's really hard to balance getting things done and accomplishing things, and also feeling like I'm giving my kids the best of me and making sure that I'm giving them love and attention and one-on-one time and playing and getting on the ground and being with them, that balance is really hard. Yeah, especially with 4 kids.
You hear these families that, back 20 years ago had 15, 17 kids.
Oh.
What do you feel like, being a young generation mom, what do you feel like is the big difference between 20 years ago raising kids and now? I think you've kind of already alluded to a few things. Like, there's just so many complexities to being parents. Like, you just feel like this balance of just, you got the soccer practice. I mean, this is my older kids right now. I'm just thinking about all the swim lessons, the piano lessons. Like, it's just never ending of all the things that you feel like you have to be involved in. Tell me, like, what do you feel like is the big difference between having kids 20 years ago and now?
Yeah, well, I feel like 20 years ago, I think social media has made parenting, it's a huge, great benefit because you have podcasts and you have these cool things and you can learn. But on the flip side, I think that it has put so much pressure on moms to look a certain way or to do things a certain way. It's debilitating at times, I think, because this pressure is unnecessary. Like 20 years ago, my mom didn't think about how much TV I watched, or she didn't think about me going out into the, growing up, I just would go outside.
Like, sleepovers are such a huge thing, it doesn't really happen anymore.
I don't know. Yeah, I just, my mom would send me outside in the summer and would not see me all day. Right? And
now we're worried about our kids going to the bus stop.
Now it's just not like that. Yeah. And so I think that the world is just changing, or just because the world seems so much smaller because social media, there's this pressure and it's hard. I don't know. Yeah. It's just so different.
What advice would you give the young mom that's just, mom for the first time, that's like figuring all this out on this balance? What would you say?
I think get help is huge. And I know that not everyone can afford to have an actual nanny come, or can't afford to put their kids in daycare or something like that. But there are so many people and there's so many ways that you can get help. Yeah. Whether that's you have a friend and you guys trade once a week. You take their kids for a few hours and then another time they take your kids for a few hours. Huge. Why don't more moms do that? You should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or have your mom come, or your in-law.
I've never understood that. It's like, you have friends in the neighborhood. Why don't you guys just switch? You go to the grocery store, and it seems super simple to me,
Yes. I wish that more moms would do that, for sure. I think number one advice I would say for a new mom is you don't have to do this alone. And there's other moms that feel like they have, if you do feel like that, there's other moms that feel that same way. Yeah. So connect and make a plan. And there's so many solutions for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about your mindset of getting to exercise. It sounds like that's been a top priority for you. Like, you're doing it at 5:30 in the morning. You got twins. You got all these kids that you got to maintain. You're probably not sleeping well. How are you getting to the gym 3 times a week? You're doing CrossFit. Yeah. How are you doing that?
For me, exercise isn't as much about I feel like I have to exercise. It's a want. And for me, I am a better mom. I'm a better wife. I'm a better person if I can go to the gym. Yeah. And even on days that I don't go to the gym, my husband will be like, you needed to go to the gym today. He can tell. Yeah. And there's just something that fills my bucket about going and doing something hard and accomplishing it. That's an hour that's super sacred for me. I purposefully choose not to go to a gym with daycare so that I can just go and just be by myself and just be in my own element. And it's like a mental health thing almost more than a physical health thing for me to get to the gym.
Absolutely. I would say that's one of the biggest components to the topic that we are discussing today of reclaiming your body, is to prioritize you.
Yes.
Too often we're just, I see these new moms and they're just just throw themselves on the train tracks and get ran over, and they just feel like they have to get ran over 17 more times, and it's just part of their duty. It's about prioritizing, right? Prioritizing you.
And I think a huge thing that people need to remember is self-care isn't selfish. Because I take care of myself, I then have a larger capacity to take care of my family. Mm-hmm. You can't give from an empty bucket.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like the very simple verbiage that we hear on an airplane when it says put the oxygen on yourself first before your children, right?
Yes.
The people think, none of us would think that's selfish selfish, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you got to take care of you or else you're going to die and you can't save your kids, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, we're talking about a different topic here, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If you don't prioritize you, eventually it catches up to you.
And, I think that my generation is getting better at this.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that they're not amazing, but I think that they're better where like my mom and like people her age, I feel like it's almost like they were this like victim of giving birth to children. It was like, oh, well, I never got to do that. Mm-hmm. It's like, why not? You could have.
Absolutely.
Like you could have gone to the gym. You could have gotten a massage.
Yeah.
You could have taken a break.
Yeah.
Like it's not, I don't know if you've seen that, but I feel like
Definitely have.
this, like, maybe boomers, is that like, it was like they were this victim of motherhood. And it's like, I think that we're slowly moving away from that of like, no, you are a human and you can do things for yourself, and that's good for you, and that's good for your family, and that's good for your children. Yeah. And if you can take care of yourself, then everyone is happier. Everyone is happier.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this conversation started from women not pounding this drum of demanding like feminism. It was more of a conversation with men of saying, I need you to play an active role in the home.
Totally. Right? And I also feel like there's been a shift more in that direction as well with men.
Yeah.
I do think that like fathers are showing up a little bit better. Like, I love my dad to death, but he wasn't really involved in like
changing your diapers.
No, he went to work, he came home and he did his thing.
Yeah.
Right. And then, I mean, he was a very supportive and loving father, but it wasn't like he was putting me to bed at night.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was my mom's job. Mm-hmm. Where my husband is like, he loves it. He gets home and he's like excited to play and roll around and wrestle and be with the kids, which is so fun.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I have that.
I had my 4 kids at or at basketball practice last night because my wife was working, and someone came up to me and said, "You're an amazing dad." And I kind of took that as a compliment. I was like, "Thank you." But then I thought about it. I'm like, would my wife get that same compliment?
No.
Like they look at me and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're juggling all these kids," and like that should be the new norm.
That should be how it is.
We're shared role. Like I'm their father. I'm not babysitting.
No,
these are
you're
my
not
kids.
a babysitter. You are the dad.
Yeah.
Totally. Like a wife should be able to leave and not have to tell her husband like the routine of like what to do. Absolutely. Like she would have to with a babysitter.
And I love women in my life, but sometimes when they come to me when my wife's leaving town and they're like, "Do you need help? Like, do you need us to bring you dinner?" It kind of, like, I kind of get taken back, and I always say thank you. But in my mind, I'm like, I don't need help. Like, these are my kids. I know how to take care of them.
Yeah.
I know what the process.
I'm fully capable.
And I might need to be reminded of the nap time schedule, but that's, and maybe some help getting some food from the grocery store. But for the most part, like, that's my role. And I think that society's making that shift. And dads are being more involved, which I think will allow women to reclaim their bodies quicker, more efficiently.
Totally. And I will say not everyone has that. Absolutely. But like I said, there are still ways. Do a trade with a friend. There's still things that you can do to give yourself time to take care of yourself.
Yeah. So let's talk about your postpartum journey and your pelvic floor recovery. Tell me, how did you feel physically after giving birth? Let's just talk about the twins just recently. Remind me, how old are the twins now?
They're 3 months.
3 months old. So tell me about how you felt after, hormones, pelvic floor. What issues did you have?
I had the twins, but I think to kind of fully understand where my body was at, you have to remember, so I have an 18-month-old, and my twins and my next son are 14 months apart. I got pregnant 6 months postpartum, and then I had a 8-month pregnancy because they were twins. So my body had not had time to fully recover after my other child. And my second son was 9 pounds 7 ounces. He was a huge baby. Yeah. So I had tearing and had issues after his birth. That was
research shows you don't even fully recover hormonally for up to 2 years after having a baby.
Yeah. So 6 months postpartum, and I got pregnant, unexpectedly. And then, I'm pregnant with twins, which was a whole other ball game.
Can't imagine the whirlwind.
I would rather be pregnant twice with one baby than once with twins. People are like, oh, you get two for one. I'm like, no.
Not the same.
Double the, it was so hard. Yeah. So then I had the twins and my body felt so weak. I had never felt so just weak. Mm-hmm. Like I even exercised, I moved, I was really active for the majority of my pregnancy to the best of my ability. Towards the end, it was quite difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I even asked my OB if he would put me on bed rest so that I wouldn't feel guilty.
Can you put me on bed rest so I don't have to move?
And he was like, no,
Absolutely.
You need to move. Yeah. He's like, that would be the worst thing for you. You need to keep moving your body.
I love your
And I was
OB.
like, I know, my OB is the best. Shout out to Spencer Pearson.
I love Spencer Pearson. He is my wife's OB. He's delivered my kids as well. And he's an incredible OB.
Yeah.
If you don't have a great OB,
go to him.
Is the man.
I attest.
And he knows all the research. He challenges. He pretty much says like, there's no bed rest. Even for people that have got severe cases, like you have to be moving.
I know. I was like, please just put me on bed rest. He's like, no. You need to keep going on walks. Yeah. You need to keep stretching. And I'm grateful that I did continue to move because, motion is lotion is what I like to say.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been hanging out too much.
That was huge for my pregnancy. And I think that also helped me postpartum, but I still felt so weak. Like, after you have a baby, you have no abs, you have no strength, and I just felt so weak.
Yeah. Tell me what symptoms you had other than weakness.
What do you mean?
So in the pelvic floor world, you could have leakage, you could have pain with sex, like you could have hip pain, back pain, pelvis pain. What were the symptoms that you had?
So, I had super bad leakage, and I always have. Even before I had babies, I had leakage, which I don't really understand, but like full pee. Sometimes.
And what activities? We're talking jumping, jump roping, laughing,
jumping,
coughing.
Laughing, coughing.
All the above. So you had
everything
before you had a baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. You have to tell me how that works because I don't know why.
Ultimately, it becomes a timing thing, right? The muscles are not timed appropriately to be able to squeeze before you sneeze, right? The muscles aren't holding in the urine, so it's a forceful, and it ultimately comes down to a Valsalva, or the intra-abdominal pressure that you have. You're not able to control it.
Interesting. Well, now I can, so it's great.
But now, postpartum, right?
Yeah.
You know how to control it now.
Yeah.
But what other symptoms do you have?
Leakage was super bad. Sex was really painful. So after my second baby, I just had scarring, and I learned from you that I was just holding it tight. It was too tense, so my muscles were not soft on there. I don't know the correct term. And so that was a huge bummer, and then I would just say weak. But those are the main three. No strength here, leakage.
And you don't see as often in the pelvic floor world when you have both leakage and pain. Typically, you'll see one or the other, but you rarely see both of them together. The pain typically comes from holding patterns. You're holding muscles really tight, and you never really relax them, and that's why it hurts with intercourse. Leakage is due from a weakness, but most of the time when you have pain, it's typically weak as well.
Yeah.
Right? So, but sometimes they can be correlated, sometimes they can't. But most of the time, it's you have hypertone, you're holding patterns, and that's what creates the pain. So tell me about your experience in therapy and how that corrected the things that you were going through. And maybe even the fears that you had entering into it in the first place. I mean, there's a lot of females that are just like, I don't know if I could go to PT because it's vulnerable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I had heard of pelvic floor therapy, and I had, kind of seen like, you can fix those symptoms. And I was originally thinking that it was more for, the ab separation than anything. So I asked my OB, he knew of like a pelvic floor physical therapist, and if that would help, and he had said that, totally recommended me to you. And I am so grateful that I came. Like, truly, I feel like it added so much value to my life, not only because I feel healed, and my pelvic floor feels really strong and healed, but also I just feel like I learned so much about my body and the way that it functions. I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. What were some of the things that you experienced going into therapy? You're like, I'm nervous about this, or I don't know how that's going to go, to help our followers understand what that process is like.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just walk you through it.
Yeah.
So first appointment, I come and you do an internal exam. The way that I look at the internal exam is very similar to the way I would look at like an OB's internal exam.
Yeah.
It's very similar. You get undressed, waist down, they do the sheet, and they're up feeling those muscles.
Very professional.
Very professional.
Process.
Very similar to an OB's visit, where you would get checked, So it wasn't like uncomfortable or weird for me, because I'm looking at it as you're a medical professional and you are helping solve an issue that I have.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm really grateful that you did that, because the internal exams were able to teach me, like you'll touch a certain muscle and it's like, oh, that's the muscle that I'm supposed to be relaxing or contracting, or, where if you were just to try and explain that to me, my mind wasn't really like putting those two together. But when you were able to touch it, my mind was able to say like, oh, that's that muscle. And then that taught me then how to perform the exercises that you were asking me to do properly.
Yeah, if I was to push on your bicep and you were squeezing your bicep and I pushed on it and said, relax this, you can relax it, right?
Yes.
But sometimes our pelvic floor does not have that connection.
Totally.
And you need that pressure or that pushing on the actual muscle to figure out, how do I relax that? How do I contract that? Because you have no idea what's happening with your pelvic floor muscles unless you actually push on those muscles.
Totally. Like, it's not like I have my hand up there. Like, I don't really know. And so that was huge for me. And I think that was honestly what helped me have the most success, was because of those internal exams, because you were able to teach me how to connect my brain to those muscles.
How is that different than an OB exam? They're both internal exams, but what in your experience, what is a PT looking for versus an OB?
Okay, I would say very similar experience. The difference would be my OB is typically more like deeper. Mm-hmm. He's working with looking at my cervix, a pap smear, he's up deeper, and he would open up with like a clamp or things like that.
Which one's more comfortable?
Yours was extremely way more comfortable. Like,
very different, right?
Very, very different. You aren't going in very far. It's very soft, I would say it's less invasive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And ultimately what it comes down to is the function of the internal exam is very different. So what we're looking for is muscle function. We are the musculoskeletal experts. That's why a pelvic floor exam falls under the scope of practice of a physical therapist.
Yes.
Because we study muscles. The pelvic floor is muscles. And there's multiple layers of those muscles. And if those muscles aren't functioning well, it's our job to correct them and to teach them what to do. OBs, it's not that they don't care about muscles. It's just not their role. It's not
that's
their
not
scope.
Their expertise.
So ultimately, that's what it's about, retraining those muscles, getting your brain to connect with them and understand how to utilize them. And tell me about what, we took your internal exam, teaching you those things. How did we take that and then apply it to real life things, picking things up, exercising?
Because of the internal exams, I was able to know, okay, this is how I'm supposed to contract or relax these specific muscles, which then allowed me, as I'm doing exercises and I'm doing, whether that's core work or anything, any functional training or anything, it was able to teach me, okay, as I pick something up from the ground, this is the muscle that I need to contract, along with core and diaphragm and all the things, right? And
for people listening, we talked about the can, right? Remember that the picture, the diagram we drew up on the whiteboard, where the top of the can is your diaphragm, the bottom of the can is your pelvic floor, and the sides of the can is a muscle in your core that stabilizes. Yeah. And each one of those have to equally and opposite contract to be able to create that intra-abdominal pressure, or else the pressure goes outwards, and it's expressed through leakage or through hernias, right? Because you're not able to control that intra-abdominal pressure. And you said all the things that we did, right? We worked on the diaphragm, your ability to breathe appropriately. We worked on your pelvic floor, the ability to relax and contract. And then we worked on your bracing to be able to stabilize as you lifted things.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it was really cool to learn then how, as we focus on each one of those things, then to learn how to put those all together.
That's the hardest part that people mostly mess up.
Yeah. Once you put those things all together, then I think that, like, I feel strong.
Mm-hmm. You are strong.
And I don't think... Yes, I am. So strong. Getting stronger.
I mean, you're
getting stronger.
Doing cleans
I don't know.
And deadlifts and back squats. Like, I still
feel not as strong. I definitely will say I don't feel as strong as I used to be, but I feel strong in a way.
3 months postpartum, there's a reason.
Well, yeah, but I will say I feel stronger in a way that I haven't felt since having kids.
Yeah.
Yes, I could do a back squat, and yes, I can, clean before, but like my core and my pelvic floor feel strong. And I don't even know how to describe that. Like, even walking around, like, I feel more put together.
You feel connected, right?
Yeah.
You feel stabilized.
Like physically actually connected and
ultimately,
stabilized. That's a great word to put it.
I really want to like emphasize this is a lot of people think their core has to be strong in order to not have issues. There is some correlation, but it's very, very small. Your core doesn't have to necessarily be strong. It has to be able to tolerate the load that you're requiring, right? So even the six-pack muscle, the rectus abdominis, plays almost no role in stabilization. People will work that six-pack muscle, and it really almost has no function at all.
Just to look good.
It looks good. That's about it.
Well, good thing.
But its ability to stabilize through a heavy lift for low back pain almost has no correlation.
Interesting.
At all. It's just your ability to maintain an intra-abdominal pressure as you lift. And if you have them coordinated together, it doesn't matter as much about strength. It just matters about control, timing, and sequencing.
And I feel like we worked a lot on that.
Yeah.
Of like timing on how to connect all of the things, so that I could have that control that you're talking about, and I feel it. Yeah, it's cool.
Absolutely. So let's just talk about our audience here. Like, for moms that are experiencing similar things, that may be afraid to go to a therapist or afraid to embark on this journey, or they don't feel like they have time, give us some key things that you did, or maybe what you would share with yourself if you started all over.
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing I would say to moms is it is common. We talked about this. It's common to have these symptoms of leakage and, weak and or painful sex or whatever, right? Because that's what happens to you after you have a baby, but it's not normal. Like, your body doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your body does not have to.
No matter what age.
Yeah. No, yeah. And it's interesting, my mom was like, maybe I should go. And I'm like, yes, you should. I think every woman that has had a child, or maybe even not, like I leaked before, this is not normal, and your body can perform at its optimal state. It can. You don't have to have these things. You don't have to pee when you sneeze, just because that's common. And that's like, like a rite of passage almost as mothers. It's not normal, and you can go get help, and you should. You totally should, especially with like the resources that we have. There are physical therapists that know how to fix this.
Yeah.
And yes, it's a sacrifice. Yes, it's time consuming. It was expensive. Mm-hmm. It was. I mean, if I had a baby at the beginning of the year and insurance paid, that would have been really nice.
Plan it next time.
You should plan to have your baby in the beginning of the year. Then you have the year you met your deductible. No. No, but like for me, it's interesting because I was talking to my husband about this, and he was like, like, should we keep paying for this? And it was like, truly, every appointment that I went to, I found a lot of value. A lot of value was added to my life from that. I learned so much each time. It was totally worth it for me. Yeah, it sucks having to get a babysitter and come and do it. But do I want to set my life up for success? Like, do I want to have my body be mine and be in control and treat my body like the gift that it is? And yeah, I do.
Tell me about, we're going to shift audiences here because we have an audience on this podcast that are healthcare providers. What is it in those sessions that you got that was valuable so our providers understand, what do I got to do every session to give value? What is that, those things that happened in each session that was like, that was worth my time, that was worth my money, that was worth my effort, all the things? Because I mean, when I think about a mom and all the steps that she has to take to get to therapy,
it's a lot.
It's so much. So those
like that
sessions
is hard.
got to be like through the roof value, right? So what advice would you give our providers to really double down on value and give you those resources and that help that you need to make it feel that you're actually, all that sacrifice is worth it?
Yeah. I think something that the foundation team did really well is they didn't just have me do things. They explained why, and they explained, the reason behind it.
Yeah.
And they explained how then these exercises were going to impact my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And then how I can, apply the things that I'm learning in these like stupid, dumb exercises, like these random little things that then like
how it's going to build,
how it's going to actually affect, and how I can then apply it into my daily living.
It's going to be foundational. No pun intended.
Okay. Right. No, but truly and I think that knowledge and that,
because the little exercises are not going to translate or you're not going to be doing these little things forever.
No, right? I'm not going to be like on the ground
small,
doing little like breathing things forever. No, but the education there to then teach me, teach me about my body and its functions and the way that it should feel and the way that it can feel. It just, then applying that to my day-to-day life was really awesome.
What are the top 3 takeaways you got from therapy in your in the whole experience that you went through? What are like the top 3 things that our listeners can say, man, I need that, or man, I really should advocate for myself to get that? And I'm going to talk about, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to talk about the puzzle. When we're doing pelvic floor or any kind of rehab, I like to think of it as this beautiful puzzle. It could be whatever scene you imagine, but we give you a puzzle piece at a time and just do a little bit more. Initially, when you're in therapy, whether it be for a broken leg, any kind of rehab, pelvic floor, back pain, whatever, you won't really understand what the picture looks like until we get to the end. But you'll start to see little pieces that come together where it's just like a light bulb will come on and say, oh, that makes sense. Right? But initially you have to put a lot of trust into your provider because they're giving you a puzzle piece and you're like, where does this even go?
Yeah.
Right? This is just in the center or a corner piece and this doesn't really help me right now. But you have to say, okay, what's the next puzzle piece? And be patient with that process. These little dumb exercises, they're little and dumb right now, but how are they going to help you deadlift again? How are they going to help you lift your kids? How are they going to help you play with your kids? How are they going to help you get to the ground and not have pain or leak when you not do jump ropes, right?
Or
but
even
we got to start low and then build, and then we paint this beautiful picture, and then you can see it, but it's hard to see in the beginning.
Totally. Yeah. So for me, I think biggest takeaway is I feel like I truly learned how to use my pelvic floor properly to help me have an optimal life. I wasn't able to do that. I mean, I tried, I watched like YouTube videos or whatever, but I wasn't able to do that. I wouldn't have been able to do that without your help.
Most, research says that 70% of women do Kegels, pelvic floor exercises, opposite or wrong.
Totally.
And I have it every day where I'm checking pelvic floors. I'm like, you're doing that opposite of what you should be.
Yeah.
And most women are like, no, I do Kegels all the time. It's like, well, Kegels are not the answer. Yeah. They can be in certain aspects, but most of the time you don't need to do Kegels.
Yeah.
Right? And yes, we do prescribe Kegels in certain cases, but ultimately most women do them wrong because they're YouTubing it or because they've just done it the way they envision someone else saying.
Totally. That, for me, huge takeaway. I feel like I know my body better.
Yeah.
I understand my body. I know my body. And because of that, I'm able to then use my body in the correct way.
Yeah.
Right. Which is huge.
Absolutely. I love it.
That's huge. So I would say that's number 1. I think number 2 is, I guess in addition to that is not just my pelvic floor, but then
knowing how
the whole function,
together.
Knowing how everything coordinates, and just the education that you were able to give me about my body and how to use it correctly for optimal strength and comfort and all the things. Huge. And I think everyone should do that.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately,
I'm going to tell everyone now.
I I mean, we have doctoral degrees in this, right? We study muscles inside and out, and we have to know them like the back of our hands.
Totally.
And sometimes as providers, we don't realize how much we know and how much the average person that comes into our clinic has no idea that there's multiple layers to the pelvic floor.
I thought that I knew a lot, but I didn't.
And now you just know so much, right?
Now I feel like I know a lot. But when I first started, I thought I knew a lot. And I learned that I didn't really know that much, you know? And it's almost embarrassing. Like, this is my body. I should know that.
For sure.
You know, and I'm glad that now I do.
That's what it's about, is like empowering women, empowering people to be educated on your body.
Totally.
Right? So many people go throughout life with pain and all this dysfunction and things wrong with their body. And don't get me wrong, the healthcare system kind of fails them at times. You know, unfortunately, we need
100%.
to improve so much in our healthcare system, but advocate for yourself. Find great providers. There are so many in this community. There's so many in the world, but you gotta advocate for yourself.
And I would say that would be my second takeaway is, like we said before, just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean that that's normal.
Yeah.
And you don't have to live in discomfort. You don't have to live in discomfort. You don't have to live in pain. There are things that you can do to fix those things, those symptoms. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why? When there's a solution to a problem, why wouldn't you take it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you are worth it.
You do it, the better.
You are so worth it. You are so worth fixing the problem.
Yeah.
When there is a clear, and I wouldn't say easy, but there is a solution.
Yeah. And it takes some sacrifice, right?
And it takes some sacrifice. It wasn't easy, but honestly, it wasn't that hard. Yes, it was. Yes, I had to sacrifice. Yes, but like reward versus, sacrifice.
Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely worth it. Yeah.
Worth it.
Because ultimately, you think about like it's an investment, right?
Yeah.
You're young. You got a lot of years to live, right? And if you
100%.
I had this poor gal came into my office. She had pain with sex for like 40 years.
Ugh, that poor woman.
Never even experienced sex without pain her whole life. And, she had her daughter came in with some pelvic floor stuff, fixed it, and she told her mom about it. And her mom came in. We fixed her problem in like 6 sessions, and her husband came in and tears in his eyes, just hugged me and was just thank you for helping my wife solve this problem.
And how sad that she waited. How sad that she waited.
I know. Just like you can imagine 40 years of not being connected to your spouse.
Well, imagine 6 months.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine a year.
Let's fix the problem now.
Yes.
As we close this podcast, I want to kind of summarize. We went through your mom with 4 kids, under 3 years old, the struggles, the chaos, all the complications. We talked about your pelvic floor journey, about your postpartum journey, and how you recovered from that, and how to advocate for yourself as a woman, and how to get resources. We talked about all those things, but let's just kind of summarize as we close here. The biggest thing I'm taking away from this is you're worth it.
100%.
Like get in there and just remind yourself. It's really a mindset saying, I am totally worth fixing my body.
Yeah. And I would say, like, in addition to that, you're worth fixing your body. You're worth giving yourself time. You're worth giving yourself grace as a mom.
Yeah.
You're worth, self-care and taking care of yourself. And that's not selfish.
And the thing is, what I've realized is most of the time, if you just ask, everyone's willing to help you.
Totally.
Right? Everyone's willing to jump in, and I can't say that for everyone, but ultimately you have neighbors, you have friends, you have family, you have so much of a community around you. Do we really utilize our community? I think about the tide in the ocean. It goes out and it comes back in. And if we're not willing to let people serve us, how do we get the joy out of serving other people? So many of us just want to serve, and help other people. But we literally rob from other people the ability to serve us.
Yeah.
And I really think we can all do a better job at that, allowing people to help us. And all it takes is
asking.
Any other kind of concluding advice from mom, 4 kids under 3?
I would just say I'm a normal person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not some crazy athlete. I'm strong, but I'm not like an anomaly.
I'm expecting you to be in the CrossFit Games.
Oh my gosh. But what I'm saying is like, I am not like some crazy like fitness guru. I'm not like super mom. I am a normal person.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be like some crazy thing, or you don't have to be something special. I mean, I think I'm great, but
great.
Like you don't have to fit into this like special category to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think sometimes moms think like, oh, well, yeah, they can do that, but like I'm not going to because I'm just like a normal person.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm just a normal person.
You don't have any superpowers.
I'm not. No, like I am a totally normal person.
I do think moms have superpowers.
They do. They do.
I don't know where they come from.
No mom is just a normal person.
Superpowers as a dad.
You are worth it, even if you're just like normal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I think like I don't want to be built up to be this like, oh, I do CrossFit. It's like, that doesn't like mean really anything.
Yeah.
Like, it just is like, no, I'm just a normal mom.
Yeah.
And I have my problems and I have my issues and I yell at my kids sometimes and I am sleep deprived too.
Yeah.
And we're all right there. Even in that, you can get help and you should.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you for joining us, Emily, on this podcast. Great episode on reclaiming your body and taking back what you own. I love it so much. I appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, so fun. Thank you.